Let's get started. Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavit Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन कृतितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्ददामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेक्षिणीम् नमोऽस्तु ते व्यास विशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः।
प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपालये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृततुते नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वपापेभ्यो मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः।
Thank you. So today is the 13th chapter ending, and towards the end, we will do the summary. We will just cover the shlokas 34 and 35. So where were we with everything? From the 28th itself, we saw how, the path was being laid out. The Jnana Phalam was being talked about. And then first, the param that was introduced was the Sarvatma Samadarshanam. And even though, superficially, even though our eyes can see all the differences and everything, but the eye of wisdom can actually see the non-duality. So the inherent oneness behind all this superficial duality, uh, the person who has realized this knowledge would see only this Sama Darshanam, the eye of wisdom, which is allowing everyone to see the oneness. And this basically saves the person from any kind of strong likes and dislikes. It is this likes and dislikes which really rules our personality. And this powerful ragadvesha alone is the cause of samsara. So ragadvesha then gets weakened because we are developing that sama darshanam. So that is what we get from getting all this. So that was one benefit that we talked about from then on. The second benefit was this amritatva praptihi, which is a person sees the limitation of the plurality and everything and recognizes that anyway, this mortality is inevitable. But when I see the variety, I actually are able to see in and through the oneness, in and through all this plurality. So Amrit Tattva Prapti, the person is able to understand that moksha aspect itself. And thus, even though things are coming, going, agama paino nityaha, we say this, and even though there's birth and death, but this ekatva darshanam, samadarshanam leads that person to that Amritattva Prapti, which is what we had talked about before. So now moving on to shloka number 34. So in shloka number 34, you will see, we had just started talking about it last time. You see the simile of the sun which is given, and this simile of sun is, for that self which is used here. Yatha prakashat prakashayat ke ekah kritsnam loka imam ravihi kshetram kshetri tatha kritsnam prakashayati bharata. So just as the whole world, yatha prakashayati ekaha, the whole world is illumined by the one and only sun, right? So also, what is really ruling this entire world? It is nothing but this Lord of the field. And this whole field is kshetram kshetri tatha kritsnam, is being illumined. So the Lord of the field is illumining this entire world. So, just like how he has used this in Bhagavad Gita, which is, considered also as an Upanishad, in the Upanishad also, I see that similar similes are used, which strongly really shows the element of knowledge behind everything. So, in and through everything that we are doing, if we are able to recognize that what is behind it is nothing but knowledge, even when I take this phone from here, I don't look at it as a phone, but that knowledge which is driving that whole phone itself. What is the knowledge? That knowledge which is in the form of Sat Chit Ananda. So, as just like this one sun which is sufficient to illuminate the whole verse, so also the knowledge of this self, one self is sufficient to make all other knowledge known, isn't it? I mean, if we didn't have this light, how would we even know what would we know the knowledge of the phone or the knowledge of what the tea is giving me this morning? It's only that knowledge which is this one. So in Kathopanishad also, beautiful shloka which says, just like the sun, the eye of the whole world is not contaminated by the defects of the external eye. So also the Atma, being the innermost essence of all beings, is not contaminated by the external sorrows of the world. So here he uses the word Bharata for Krishna, sorry, Arjuna. So just like Arjuna is a luminous being, Bharata means luminous. So Krishna is addressing him in that manner and saying him, you should be able to get it, right, Arjuna? So, he's saying just like how you are such an luminous being, you should be able to understand, the sun about the sun. So in our previous shloka in 33, we actually talked about the example of space, right? So the example of space is given for us to understand that how everything is in space, but the space itself is not contaminated, right? So too, the self is in and through everything, but nothing can contaminate this. So the sun, which is located like millions of miles away, yet it is enabling this life on earth, right, to exist. All the beings, all the minerals, all the plants, all the everything and every being, from the smallest of, sometimes I see the cockroaches running here, from the cockroach all the way up to, maybe a dinosaur, right? Everything survives only because of the sun. But in and through everything, the sun is not doing anything. It's only the beings and everything which is doing it. So all these actions happen on our planet, which is distinct and separate from the sun. So Lord Krishna is saying that so too, this self which is in us, the I in us is similar to the nature of the sun. The self or the knower or the kshetrajna. He says, kshetram, kshetri tatha. So kshetrajna illumines and knows about all the actions taking place in the kshetra, in the field in which we are all in. Which one? What is the field? The field is actually starting from our own body, which is part of Prakriti. So the self does not take on really the notion of pride or doership in the actions of the body, neither does it get differentiated due to the differences in the modifications of Prakriti. Just like the sun never claims doership nor gets differentiated due to the variety of the form in the planet. So, if indeed this self, which is really the knower of all the actions of our body, you know, is this one, then how does it know everything? So, with respect to like the analogy of the sun, we can say the intellect can be compared to the pool of water that reflects the light of the sun. So the intellect is just an instrument that functions due to this knowledge of the self. If the intellect is very calm and steady, it works perfectly in interpreting the information, whatever it is receiving from the mind, right? But if it is agitated or dull, it cannot work perfectly. So just like the sun's reflection also, in the on the water is disturbed when that pool of water is very dirty. So Krishna is, in here saying that the self is of the nature of chit or that knowledge. So it is that knowledge, it is that awareness, it is that consciousness personified. So that's how we have to look at this shloka here. Any questions or thoughts?
Hari.
Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, go ahead, Meena.
So I'm trying to understand myself. So is Lord Krishna trying to say here the whole field means the Atma is the one that is illuminating the whole body? Is that what we should understand?
Yes, so, just take that analogy of the sun, okay?
Mm.
Uh, can you, in your own words, tell me what is the sun doing and what is the entire world doing?
Gives light.
The
The sun
sun is
gives
giving
light.
the light,
Yeah,
correct. But does it do anything else? Nothing, right?
yeah.
It's just giving this light from so far, millions of miles away,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But in that light, everything else is happening.
Yes.
We cannot say the sun is making us do it or anything.
No. No.
We are all individually acting. The sun is only providing the light,
Mm.
isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So too, the Atma, okay, the Atma is there, and it is because of Atma that all of us are doing what we have to do, okay? But the Atma by itself is not doing anything,
Oh, got it. Okay.
okay?
Mm.
Okay, so that is why this analogy is given. Just like this whole world is illuminated by just that one sun,
Mm.
so too, this entire world of beings, animals, humans, everything is comes alive because of that one Atma. It is only that one Atma which is there in every one of us. Just like we say, the electricity. Electricity is there in the bulb, electricity is in the refrigerator, but it is the one and only electricity that is making everything, is making all the instruments come alive, right?
Mm. Mm.
So that we should look at it that way.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, you're welcome. So imam kritsnam lokam prakashayati. Okay. So that is again, as I already said, even though the sun is so, this one prakashayati, it still is, even though being miles away, it really it illumines everything. So here ekatvam is only one, but there is, we have so many other things like you may say stars and all that, but everything comes alive, everything gets illumined by this one consciousness alone. So there is no really subject-object relationship at all. Subject comes in only when the consciousness comes here. And consciousness is the illuminator of everything. And Krishna says, Imam Kritsnam Lokam Prakashati. It illumines this entire world without getting polluted. So, and it is very sukshmatvam, um, the light cannot be touched by me. The light is here, I cannot taste it, but I know the light is there. Like even now, it's about 6:30, I think, for me. Yes, around 6:30 in the morning. I've turned on the light, and in this light, I'm able to do everything, but yet the light by itself is not affected by anything, right? So it's very, very. So this is how the Atma is. Atma is extremely sukshmatvam. It's very, very subtle, but in the presence of that Atma, everything else is happening. So I thought I'll put up this definition of Atma from Kathopanishad. Asabdam asparsham arupam avyayam tatha rasam nityam agandha vachayat. Then anadyantam mahata param dhruvam nichaya tan mrityu mukhat pramuchyate. So just again saying a shabdam, it cannot be, there is no word. Asparsham, a rupam, there is no form. There are no words, there's no feel. But yet, it is because of that Atma, everything else is functioning here. And then Suryo yatha sarva lokasya chakshuhu na lipyate chakshur bahya doshaihi ekasata sarva bhutantaratma na lipyate loka dukkhena bahyaha. This is another example, again, connecting it to the sun from Kathopanishad, So that was shloka number 35.
Hariom.
Yes, Anand?
Yeah. Thanks for the analogy. The sun example and then the Atma, right? They perfectly, they're perfect examples. And one function can think of, Bhagavan or the Paramatma, or whatever we're calling here, is in the Bhagavad Gita sloka, uh, like Ananya Sintayantema Ejana Parupaste. Tesham Nityabhuktanam Yogakshemam Vahamyam. And then the next one goes like Paritrana Sadhuna Vinasait Tushkutam Dharma Samstapanardaya Sambhavami Yuge Yuge. So like one of the functions, if something going wrong, all the adharma, then he takes care to make sure to set it right. In the analogy, when I compare with sun, right? The sun gives the lights, heat, and that way. And we are comparing that with Atma. So this is just something came to my mind. Yeah.
Correct. Exactly. I mean, so Paritranaya Sadhunam, the example that you gave, so Krishna is there to keep the dharma in the world, right? Without being apparent. Apparent in the sense Lord Krishna is not like a physical being going around the earth making sure that everyone is doing their job and everything. Everything is happening in his presence. Only when something gets disturbed, then he takes on the physical form and then he's helping to keep the dharma the way it should be. Right? So that is the Paritranaya Sadhunam. Ananyas Chintayanto Mam, what did you say as the essence of it? How do we connect it to this example here? You
I
wanted
was
to say
actually
the
referring
essence
to
of Atma.
the second one. I mean, the second sloka. The first sloka is more, his function is to, he keeps a yoga and kshema
Right. Yoga
for the
Kshema. Correct.
devotees. Yeah.
Right. Ananyas Chintayanto Mam and Paritranaya Sadhunam, they actually go together. Chapter 4, Paritranaya, and chapter 9 for the Ananyas, but yet that is one of the functions of Atma, right? That's what you said. Yeah. So if we have understood that this is really from the shloka number 34, if you have understood that that is the property of Atma, if you want to say, we use property to say the sugar is sweet, salt is, salty and all that. But in the case of Atma, Atma is a substratum. It is Atma is the reason why we are acting, and it is Atma everywhere. If we have understood that true nature of the self, then the nature of the ignorance that we are in. So today, when we think of ourselves as Sunita or Ananta and everyone, and if we act completely with that identity, then we are living in ignorance, right? But if we have also understood how to remove that ignorance from the previous set of shlokas, so then what is the final result? So this is what Krishna concludes in this chapter by asserting that the one who has removed all that ignorance through this knowledge, that person attains the supreme. Again, the word attain, is not as if the person becomes or something. The person was already really that Atma. He understands finally that this is really who I am. I'm not all this physical body and everything, which are only nothing but instruments. So once that person, that realization strikes, that is really what is moksha. So, what is moksha? Moksha is this liberation from the cycle of this Prakriti's creation, dissolution, etc., which through a lot of this viveka, this alertness, I have understood that I'm not this body, mind, and intellect, but I am that Atma. So it's sometimes, like this example of is given of this forensic investigator. He's hired to detect counterfeit currency notes. Okay. So on the first day of the job, he will not be able to really spot the difference between a fake note and a genuine note. So after learning about really the subtle colors of the notes, right? What happens is between what is fake, what is genuine, and etc. And after practicing to spot this over differences over a period of time, the eye begins to see all the minute details of the note, which an average eye cannot see. Only forensic investigators' eye will see this, right? So this the forensic investigator is now able to distinguish what is real from a fake note, right? So, this ability to separate the real from the unreal is really called as the eye of wisdom. So, for that person who then gets that eye of wisdom, who is able to see a real from a fake thing, how to conduct his life in a manner such that he can distinguish between the unreal and the real, between the field and the knower, between Purusha and Prakriti, and then learn to see in and through everything that is going through birth and death, that that in and through is nothing but that Ishvara. So when that person is able to understand that much, that person is really freed from the clutches of the Prakriti. Okay, so this is the goal of Jnana Yoga, in which this entire 13th chapter is telling us. So we will be able to attain that goal if we bring this teaching into our lives through constant reflection and meditation. So that is what in the final shloka he says, Kshetra Kshetrajna Yor Evam Antaram Jnana Chakshusha Bhuta Prakriti Moksham Cha Ye Vidur Yanti Te Param. So Kshetram. So in this manner, evam, in this manner, so he says, he literally takes us to the beginning of the chapter, taking everything that is said so far. He says this is the final conclusion. And in order to get to the conclusion, what are the conditions that need to be raised? So the first condition is we have to get the right knowledge. And the right knowledge is that I am Atma, Aham Brahmasmi. I am that knowledge, ultimately. So this means actually all the four phases of the chapter in this chapter has to be really understood, which is first we talked about the field, kshetram, okay? Then jnanam, Jneyam, Prakriti, Purusha, and finally Kshetrajna. Okay. So this all have to be understood very clearly, and by careful careful analysis of this and what is the difference between what is the field and what is Kshetrajna, then the spiritual journey can finally be over for us. So far, we are in this journey to understand it. But once I have a clear picture of all these six things that has been talked in this chapter, that then the spiritual journey is finally over. Then the second condition is that we need to have the necessary sadhana we need to do in order to attain the purity of mind. So purity, is seen as, it is kind of the freedom one gets from the binding nature of Prakriti. So as I'm consciously practicing my detachment in this world, where I'm seeing the world, everything seems rosy, but yet I'm not attached to it. It is there, I'm enjoying it. If it is not there, that is also fine. That way I don't allow Prakriti to bind me. Then I'm freed from the desires and selfishness, which is really the proof of the freedom what I've received. And that proof of freedom is shown in the purity of mind in which I conduct myself. So renunciation of egoism is the hallmark of this freedom. So that is the sadhana that is needed here. So finally, here he talks about the palam. All of us, we are, what is that? We always want to see so what do I get? What do I get when I do all this, right? So that is why he says, ye viduhu, those people who have understood from bhuta prakriti moksham cha, who have understood and got freed from the binding of nature, te yanti param. They go to the supreme. So that is the final phalam that we're getting here. And going to the supreme is really to describe the arrival at the final destination, freedom completely from the bonds of samsar in which we have gotten into. So freedom from all bondages of karmas, freedom from all imperfections in our nature also, because I have understood that that is my final goal. So these are actually the fruits of palam that arise because of me having attained moksha. Okay. So kshetram, kshetragnayor, antaram eva viduhu. The final benefit is that is the form of moksha itself. And what is moksha? Moksha, in very simple words, is nothing but freedom. Okay. If I have to define what is the property of moksha, what is moksha? Moksha is nothing but freedom. But then we'll ask freedom from what? And for whom? So freedom is given for that person who has a distinction between Kshetra and Kshetrajna. Kshetra is the field, Kshetrajna is the knower of the field. So the wise person, Viduhu are the wise person, they are the ones who can actually recognize this difference between Kshetra and Kshetrajna, or to put it in a different Sankhya language, which is Purusha and Prakriti, or if you want to put it in English, it is the difference between all matter. And how do we define matter? Matter is that which is born, which dies, which is fragmented into all kinds of things, and which is perishable. That is matter. So in English, if we have to define the difference between kshetram and kshetrajna, it is the difference between consciousness and matter. So this difference between consciousness and matter, the wise people, they recognize it very easily. And how is that? How do they know this difference? Because they have the eye of wisdom, So with that eye of wisdom I gave you that example of this forensic investigator, right? So with that eye of wisdom, they're able to, as they go through the world, they're able to understand the difference between what is real and what is unreal. This, our sense organs by itself cannot differentiate, but the sense organs with that eye of wisdom can definitely do that. So a long time back, I had given this example of the light and this hand, this hand example. They're not physically separated, but intellectually, I know the difference between what is light and what is the hand, right? It's because of the light that I'm able to see the hand itself. So too, brain and consciousness. They're not one and the same. Brain is matter. Consciousness is a separate, is that which makes the brain work. So the one who knows the difference, and those that is what he's saying. And what are those? What are the various differences? So let us see what are the four differences. Again, because it's the end of the chapter. He's saying one is Akshetram and Kshetran. So one is Chetanam. Chetanam meaning that it is sentient. And matter is insentient. And we know that, right? Matter, which is anything which is inert. Like the phone by itself is inert. But the electricity and everything is powering it, right? But even the electricity, how long can it hold on to it, right? So anyway, this phone is inert, but what is making it, this is electricity. So too for all of us, all the beings, there is a Chetanam and Achetanam, right? And then you have the Nirgunam and Sagunam, that is with form and without form, or one is the attributeless and the other one is attributed. So consciousness is attributeless. You cannot assign any kind of property to consciousness, except as Anant was saying, um, it is the only property you can give it to is that it keeps all the dharma alive, right? So, and then Krishna wants to emphasize the fourth difference in this shloka, which is, and it's the most important one, is that it is, matter is ever changing and consciousness is not changing at all. So consciousness alone exists. Matter cannot exist independently. Consciousness, on the other hand, can exist independently. So matter actually has only a borrowed existence. For example, all of us, we have borrowed existence, and at some point we are also going to leave this world, right? So just like, the screen in a movie theater, if you look at the movie theater, the screen is independent of the movie, right? So if the screen goes, the movie characters also cannot be there. The movie character also will go, but if the screen is there, then the movie is there. So too, the consciousness is independent of anything. And this whole world is nothing like a movie running on that sheet of that consciousness. And just like how, when we go to the movie theater, we see the white screen, then the movie, everything is happening. Somebody throws a huge bucket of muddy water, in the movie, that is, okay? Now, is the screen going to get affected? No, it is not going to get affected. So nothing can affect that screen. So that is what consciousness is all about. That bed of consciousness is where all this world is going on, but nothing happens to it. So prakriti, bhuta prakriti moksham cha. So moksham here refers to the, bhuta prakriti moksham cha. So moksham is the absolute state of freedom, and everything else, the bhuta prakriti, which is floating around, has got only borrowed existence, just like the dream or the movie here. So that is something to be kept in mind. And viduhu te param yanti, which is they alone attain freedom from the fear of the world. So they are called Jivan Muktis. And param, of course, means moksha, and that is the final benefit of self-knowledge. So with that, we finish the 35th shloka and it finished the 13th chapter. So we'll just review all the shlokas here. I just put, from verse 1 to 35, what did we learn? And I just have a summarizing paragraph here, which we'll go through. So in verse number 1, which was, and I Didn't put the shloka there, but I'll just read it out. It was this Arjuna's question where he's asking, those devotees who are ever steadfast, they worship you, and also those who worship the imperishable, the unmanifest, which of them are better versed in yoga? So, the is the asking, that question in verse number 1. And then from second onwards, he's asking Krishna. Krishna then tells him, those who are fixing on me, who worship me, who are ever steadfast and endowed with supreme faith, these in mine are the best in yoga. So Krishna, of course, being very cryptic, he's giving that thing in verse number 2. And in verse number 3, he gives more. He says, the those who worship the imperishable, the indefinable, the etc. And then verse number 4, he says how do they do that? Is restraining all the senses. Sanniyam indriya gramam sarvatra samabuddhayaha te prapnuvanti mameva sarvabhuta hite rataha. So they also. So in a sense, from 1 to 4, he is actually, Krishna is giving Arjuna an idea of how, who are the people who actually come to him. So then in shloka number 5, he talks about who are the people who don't come to him. And that is, he says, those whose minds are set, great is their trouble, the unmanifested for the goal. The is very hard for the embodied to reach. Embodied meaning those who have the physical body, mind, and intellect. And if they are trying to use that by itself to reach that unmanifest goal, then it's very, very hard to reach. So that is why he's giving this thing here. Then he comes. Oh, sorry. What did I do here? I was actually going through this book has chapter 12 and 13, so I'm wondering, why is it not matching with the verse numbers on the sheet? I didn't see the screen itself. Sorry about it. Oh my God. Because I've been doing the readings of both 12 and 13, I didn't even realize this. So let me go back to 13 here. Very sorry about it. So in verse number 1 is Arjuna is asking about Prakriti and Purusha. Okay. Prakriti, Purusha, then Kshetra, Kshetrajna. All this he's asking. Then definitions of Kshetra and Kshetrajna is talked about in 2. He idam shariram kaunteya kshetram iti abhidiyate etadyo veti tam prahu kshetrajna iti tad vidaha. So he talks about he defines 2 and 3 in shloka 2. And then in 3, he then talks about how, know me as the kshetrajna. So this is why at the end, in 35, he's talking about kshetrajna again, right? And then in shloka 4, he's talking about the questions that needs to be really asked, Tat kshetram yatcha yadascha yadvikari yattashtyata sachayo yat prabhavascha tat samasenat me shrunu. So the questions, what that field, what is the nature of it, what are the modifications? This is about the kshetram, right? So that are the questions he's asking. Then in 5, he's talking about how the rishis have spoken about this in so many different ways, in various distinct chants, and also full of reasoning, everything. So they've done that. So he's referring to the previous literature itself. Then now from 6 onwards, he's talking about the nature of kshetra, which is, he says, the kshetra is all the 5 elements, the intellect, the mula prakriti, the 10 senses, the mind, and all that constitutes what is kshetra. And then in 7 also, he talks about how Kshetra, along with all these elements, also all the qualities like desire, hatred, pleasure, ichha, dvesha, sukham, dukkham, sangat, kshetana, dhritihi, etat kshetram samasena, savikara, mudakritam. So all these qualities, that is also part of kshetra. So you see, from 1 through 7, he's described what is kshetrajna and what is kshetra. Then from Shloka 8 through 12, we did all the thing, Amanitvam, Adambitam, all that, 8, 9, 10, and then 11, Asaktirana Bishwanga, then Mai Chananya Yogena Bhakti Rabya Bicharini, all that, 16, up to here 18th, 18 values. And then Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam Etad Jnanamiti Proktam Ajnanam Yataton Yatha. So that one is the final in Shloka 12, the 19th and 20th. So with that, we did all the values, or we call this as the Jnanam. Then from 13 onwards, Krishna says, I will declare that which is to be known, knowing which one attains immortality. So how do I gain that moksha? What is it which must be known by? He starts to talk about the knowledge of the reality. From then on, very powerful verses describing really the quality of that knowledge that I need to know. In 14, he says, Sarvata Pani Padam Tat Sarvato Kshishiro Mukham. With hands and feet everywhere, with eyes and heads and mouth everywhere, with ears, he exists in the world, enveloping all. Then in 15, he's talking about the function of all the senses, shining by the function of the senses, yet devoid, is this so sarvendriya gunabhasam, sarvendriya vivarchitam, asaktam sarva brachaiva, nirgunam gunabhoktratvacha. So 15th verse is talking about again the omniscience of the world, of the Lord. Then again talking about all these are, the powers of the Lord. In 16 also, which is about the unmoving, the moving, the subtlety, those aspects as being talked about. So you see how in chapter 13, really so much of information about that absolute reality, that Lord, is given here. All very beautiful meditative verses, actually. Then in 17, he's talking about how that Lord is partless. If you look at the entire world, everything is divided, isn't it? But that Lord is undivided. And yet, he exists in all of them as if he is divided. And that is to be known as supporter of things, And so he talks about that bhuta bhritchatatnyam. So we have to know that. Then in 18, another powerful verse, he talks about the light aspect of it. He light in the sense of the absolute knowledge. So the light of all nights is said to be beyond darkness. Knowledge is seated in the heart of all. So that is the 18th verse. And then from 19 onwards, you see how the focus now shifts not on the Lord, but on the person, on the seeker. Okay. So 19th is the transition he makes. And from here on, he talks about Purusha and Prakriti. Okay. So what is Prakriti, which is nothing but all this matter? Earlier, so one may ask, what is then the difference between Kshetra and Prakriti, right? In Prakriti, there is, he really explains about all the tattvas and everything. Whereas in Kshetrajna, it is all about the entire field, the whole field is described here. So he talks about what is Prakriti, what is Purusha, and then in 21, he talks about how this Prakriti is a cause for the pain and pleasure. Then he talks about the quality of Purusha in 22. Then 23, he says about how it is that same Purusha which is in the body, Upadrishtanumanta cha bharta bhokta maheshwaraha, that shloka, 23. And then 24 says, that person who knows that knowledge of Purusha and Prakriti, that person doesn't come into the world again because that person has understood that relationship between Purusha and Prakriti, that Prakriti is nothing but Purusha in a different form. So then from 25 onwards, he actually gives, he says, Dhyane Natmani Pashyanti, some by meditation behold the self in the self by the self, and others by the yoga of knowledge, and others by karma yoga. So he talks about how through meditation, through karma, and through karma yoga, through Sankhya yoga, people are able to see the self. Then in 26, he gives the assurance that that Purusha is attainable by all. It can be many different paths, but anybody can attain that Purusha. Then again, finally, the last phase, which is, he's talking about, how Kshetra and Kshetrajna are sort of partners, and in that, saying that whenever anything is born, the unmoving or moving, that is only because of the union between the Kshetra and the Kshetrajna. And somebody who sees in 28, he talks about somebody who sees that Lord existing equally in all. 29, he again talks about how who sees the same Lord equally dwelling, doesn't get destroyed at all. And then in 30, he says, he who sees all the actions are performed by the Prakriti and the self is actionless. Again, a powerful meditative verse that needs to be thought about. And then 31 is about when he sees a man, a man sees a whole variety of beings is resting in the one, he alone becomes that person. So Brahman, he says, then 32 is, he says, being without beginning and devoid of qualities, the supreme dwelling. Again, neither acts. We gave this example of space. And then the subtlety of space is talked about in 33. And then 34, which we did today, we talked about the sun example. And then 35, finally, we said that in and through all this, we need to have the eye of wisdom. And when that eye of wisdom is there, the distinction between Kshetra and Kshetrajna is known. And the liberation from the Prakriti happens automatically, and the person goes to the supreme, Param, Te Yanti Param Gatim. That's how the chapter ends. So this is just again a short summary of it. Finally, where he says the field and the knower, and then the knowledge was given, attributes, everything here. And finally, he gives the two examples. And finally, he talks about what is moksha and liberation. So now the question is, do we now clearly understand what is moksha and liberation? Is that really a final goal? And are we clear about the path in which that can be attained? So I just want to give a couple of minutes here for us to kind of ruminate on this.
Hari Om. So
Yes,
it's
Meena.
not that we clearly understood what is the path, for the liberation or something like that, but at least, to some extent, whatever. Actually, this chapter is very small, but it has too many informations to
It's very, very powerful.
Yes.
You're absolutely right.
So it's not that we can, at least,
Yes.
try to understand little bit, and
Yeah.
that's the only thing I can think about.
Yeah. Chapter 13 is really, really, really loaded. It is, you rightly pointed out, I'm glad you saw it that way too, is there are so many concepts, but this is the beginning of this 6 chapters, right?
Yeah.
14th is very easy. 14th and all this will go into more of the path.
Actually, it is not something like, okay, you do this, you follow this, you'll get it. But it's not like
Yeah,
that. It's not
no.
straightforward at all. There's too many things to take to your mind, and it's very tough. I would say
Yes.
it's a tough chapter.
Yes, yes. And that's why we took so long, and I know it was very dry,
Mhm.
but it had to be done only this way. There's no fun way of doing this. And that's why, if you notice, I did not put too much pictures.
And
I
also,
didn't do any
one
of
thing we
that,
have to
you
tell
know?
you, it's because
Yes.
you gave lots of examples and other things. Only then, we could understand a little bit. Otherwise, absolutely no.
That is the greatness of our Mahatmas. We are not, all these examples, it is so amazing, Meera, is even the examples, the right kind of examples have already been given, and no other examples can come, which we can give, which is, we can only come up with stories.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, that the story what I gave of a forensic investigator who's trying to separate fake notes from real notes.
Yes.
Those are kind of stories that we can give, but um, the analogies and everything has already been given by our Mahatmas. And if we have to keep on giving only the same example, the snake and the rope and the sun and the moon and the stars and the electricity example and and this movie screen and the ocean and the waves, all these examples, uh, why are we giving the same examples, which sometimes can be boring? Somebody may say, oh, why don't you change your examples? It is not because of that. It's because if I keep hearing the same example again and again, I will be able to use that example. I will be able to, through that example, see what I'm trying, where I'm trying to go with this moksha and freedom and everything. Um, so that's why the examples are so powerful. So in chapter 13, finally, if I have to say what did chapter 13 really help us most is it was it gave us an idea of our final goal, which is knowing that I am Brahman. That part of it was shown to us. And in order to do that, we had to understand in a broad way what is the field in which we are working. And that is why the description of Kshetra was also given. And also, what is the properties of Brahman was given. And finally, giving us this assurance that we all can reach there. That was also given.
No, you said all the Mahatmas have given us all these and all that, but you took your time to put them into a PowerPoint presentation, and
Right,
to give that, we really have to appreciate. Only then we are able to understand. I mean, we know that there are so many things, but if we go directly and read something, it's not that simple to understand. But
right.
we really have to appreciate, and thank you so much, and we have to bow you, definitely, for sure. Thank you so much.
No, but I have to thank all of you because it's only, we all can read, okay? And reading is passive. Watching a YouTube video is passive. All that, when you're reading or when you're listening, it seems like, oh my God, everything I understand, right? But only when I start working on this, putting this PowerPoint together, what are the terms I have to put? What is the story I have to talk? Then what happens? This aha moment goes even more. And so I'm really so grateful to all of you because of you, I'm able to understand this even better. It is like that.
That's very extensive
So
information you're giving.
But I promise you, chapter 14 onwards, it's going to be so simple to understand. And it's really beautiful, very down to earth, another very delightful chapter, I would say.
Oh, looking forward to it. Thank you.
Yeah. Jayashri, you wanted to say something?
No, I was listening. I just wanted to thank you, Sunita ji. Yeah, again, what like Meena said, all those explanations, or again and again, if we hear only something sinks in, maybe. So I'm really grateful for all their explanations and thorough teaching. Thank you.
You're
Hari Om.
welcome.
Hari
The
Om.
one thing I will not, yes, yeah, go ahead, Anant. Anant. Go ahead, Anant.
No, they can continue. I can.
Yeah, no, what I just wanted to say is you will notice that at the end of chapter 13, I'm not asking you which is your favorite shloka because you won't be able to say which is my favorite shloka because
Too
all the
many.
shlokas are so powerful and they all need to be meditated upon a lot before I can say that this one shloka is what I like the most,
I was
Yeah.
about to ask you why you didn't ask us this question, because after every chapter you normally ask us, but you didn't ask us, so I could understand. Okay.
Yes. Anand, you wanted to say something?
Hari Om. Yeah, again, the chapter builds starting with some explanation and then
Uh-huh.
giving us the qualities like amanitvam, adambitvam, and then what are the qualities, that are needed, which for
Uh-huh.
the to reach the, the amrutatvam, and then it builds like,
Correct.
yeah, so it's and then the qualities are the one probably one to begin with, and then
Yes.
go from there. And also,
Correct.
thanks for breaking up and then, analyzing to so that we all can, understand because this is so
Uh-huh.
deep in in the meaning. Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks so much. Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Anand. The you're right in the chapter 13, as much as the 20 values was very easy for us to understand, and I did spend a lot of time over there, mainly because that part of it, we can grasp it and we can do something about it in order to attain the purity of mind. So once that purity is attained, then it is easy for us to focus on the middle part of chapter 13, which is all about really that consciousness principle. That is why we spend so much time in that area. But the meat of it is actually in this center about Brahman itself. Yeah. Okay. So finally, Chandra, do you want to say something? Which was any parts that you like the most or
Thank you so much. The wonderful explanations and everything. Really, it's even being it's a very tough chapter, we could be able to understand to some extent, right? At least, oh, this is
uh-huh.
that is Atma and all that
Yes,
consciousness, everything. At least to get one
correct.
way of one path,
Right.
we can just think in one way of line, a good line that, oh, this is what we have to be focused on it to attain all the
Mm-hmm.
good
Yeah.
qualities.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your
Good.
valuable
I'm
time.
glad. You're welcome. You're welcome. Like I said, this is the best thing that I could be doing throughout my day. It keeps you grounded and yeah. So let's do the final verse. Om Tatsariti Srimad Bhagavad Gitasu Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Kshetra Trayodasho Dhyaya Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga. The distinction between the two, that is what is the crux of the 13th chapter. So we'll meet, sorry, I forgot to change this. We'll meet next week, August 13th, I think, with the beginning of the 14th chapter. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, Sarve bhadrani pashyantu ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you. So
Thank
next
you,
week when we
Sunitaji. Hari
start
Om.
again, Hari Om, we will do the entire Gita Dhyanam.
Okay.
Okay, see you. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you.
Thank
Hari Om.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Sunitaji.
Hari Om. Hari
You're
Om.
welcome.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.